Hello, and welcome to our channel. What if I told you that right now in the United States, the land of opportunity, children as young as 12 are working in slaughterhouses exposed to dangerous chemicals and laboring in extreme heat and weather. And children younger than 12 can be seen every day selling products on our city streets. And here's the shocking part, it's not only happening, it's getting worse. How did we get here? And more importantly, who is letting this happen? Stay with us because by the end of this video, you'll understand why child labor violations have exploded by 283% in just 7 years, and why millions of children are slipping through the cracks of a broken system. But first, let's start with a question. Who's benefiting from this exploitation? The answer might surprise you. In 2024, child labor is not just a problem for developing countries. Right here in the US, over 4 million children are working legally, while another 1 to 2 million are employed illegally. These aren't babysitters or paperboys, they're kids wielding dangerous tools, exposed to toxic pesticides, and working shifts meant for adults. Take slaughterhouses and meatpacking facilities. These are jobs so hazardous they're notorious for causing injuries even among seasoned adults. So why are children, kids who should be in school or playing outside, pushed into these roles? The answer lies in two things: desperation and loopholes. America's child labor laws have massive gaps. Did you know that children as young as 12 can legally work unlimited hours on farms, as long as it's outside school hours? And in some cases, children as young as 10 have been found working in these environments illegally, often hidden from public view. But here's the twist, this isn't just about outdated laws, it's about deliberate exploitation. Coming up, how big business and state governments are rolling back protections in the name of profits. Let's talk about the role of big business. From agriculture to manufacturing, corporations have an incentive to cut costs. And what's cheaper than paying a child minimum wage? Here's a staggering fact. The Department of Labor found over 800 companies violating child labor laws in 2023 alone, raking in profits while putting children in harm's way. But the blame doesn't stop there. In 2024, 12 states enacted laws to weaken child labor protections, citing the need for more workers. Think about that. Instead of addressing labor shortages responsibly, they chose to turn children into a solution. Meanwhile, the fines for breaking child labor laws are laughable. In 2023, the Department of Labor issued $8 million in penalties. Sounds like a lot, right? Not when you consider that's less than a drop in the bucket for multi-billion-dollar corporations. But who's really paying the price? Up next, the horrifying conditions these children face every single day. So what does child labor look like in 2024? It looks like this: children working in sweltering fields under the scorching sun, inhaling toxic pesticides with every breath. It looks like 15-year-olds standing for hours in slaughterhouses using sharp tools to process meat, and sometimes losing fingers in the process. One young worker was quoted saying, "I've worked 12-hour shifts during the summer, it's exhausting, but my family needs the money." Another stated, "I've seen kids get hurt, but we're told not to say anything." This isn't just about physical danger. The psychological toll on these children is devastating. Imagine being 14 years old and carrying the weight of your family's financial survival. Now imagine doing it in fear of injury, fear of retaliation, fear of being caught and deported. Coming up, the surprising links between child labor and immigration policies. Here's where things get even darker. Many of the children trapped in labor are undocumented immigrants. They arrive in the US seeking safety and a better life, only to find themselves exploited by the very system that's supposed to protect them. A recent investigation revealed that some sponsors who take in migrant children are not vetted properly. This has led to cases of children being forced into labor in exchange for food and shelter. And the government. They've admitted they often lose track of these children. Official: "We are increasing vetting and training to prevent exploitation, but it's a complex issue." But is it really that complex? Or are we simply turning a blind eye? We're not done yet. Stay tuned for solutions, and why they might not be enough. As you watch this, small illegal alien children are being put to work full-time in Times Square, as well as on many streets, subways, buses, and trains. Muckraker.com spoke to some child workers and heard their stories. One stated that he witnessed a child being kidnapped from Times Square in broad daylight. Another shared his experience of seeing children drown while crossing the Darien Gap en route to the United States and expressed his desire to return home to Ecuador. The NYPD is investigating a string of robberies targeting people in Times Square, and they believe nearly 24 young migrants are behind the crimes. Some of the suspects are as young as 11 years old, and their ages, police say, allow them to get away with the robberies. As a result, they stay out of jail and keep targeting New Yorkers and tourists alike. Police say they first targeted Central Park this summer and now Times Square is their playground. In response to all the young children working on the streets of New York, the city has begun distributing flyers to discourage migrant families from allowing their children to sell candy on the streets and subway, targeting one of the most visible symbols of the ongoing migrant influx that have drawn concerns about migrant children's welfare, according to Mayor Eric Adams's office. The handout also provides contact information about access to school, childcare, and the rights of workers and immigrants. Sadly, the Biden administration and the United Nations have encouraged hundreds of thousands of children to risk their lives trekking to the United States. This is the fate that awaits many once they arrive. Not everyone is standing idly by. In 2024, 14 states introduced bills to strengthen child labor protections. Advocates are calling for stricter enforcement, higher fines for violators, and better support systems for vulnerable families. Activists: we can't let children bear the burden of a broken system. It's time to hold corporations and governments accountable. Technology is also playing a role. Apps like Sweat and Toil allow consumers to identify goods linked to child labor, putting pressure on companies to clean up their supply chains. But here's the uncomfortable truth: laws and apps won't fix this alone. As long as poverty, immigration loopholes, and corporate greed persist, children will remain at risk. So what can you do? The rise of child labor in the US isn't just a policy failure, it's a moral failure. Every child deserves a chance to learn, grow, and thrive without being exploited. Here's what you can do. Support organizations fighting child labor, vote for leaders who prioritize children's rights, and demand accountability from corporations profiting from exploitation. Together we can break this cycle. But the question remains, will we? Help us end child labor. Share this video, subscribe to our channel, join the fight. Cheers.